I think now all the people who did the work and who just made the presentation are all together, and we are ready to answer your questions. As far as I understand, you can write your questions to the chat, or you can also raise your hand if you have anything to ask, and we are happy to answer. Simon, can you? I think.
Yeah. Hi.
You should be able to speak now. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. I hope you can understand me well. Yeah. Thanks for the very nice insights in the different projects and approaches. And yeah, I have actually two questions. So regarding NOMAD, yeah, you recently introduced this very nice notebook features and using also a scheme to describe the data. My question is, if as I understood it, NOMAD and also Oasis, if I run it locally, are meant as an archive. So if I upload data there, it's not meant to edit it anymore. It's persistent. So is this the case? So it's not really as a working process tool, but it's an archive where I have persistent data.
To answer it, actually, indeed, there is the possibility to archive your data. But what Shajir has shown is that there is a staging area, which is your project area, which is a working directory where you can work with your data. You can produce new results, you can produce new files, and you can really work there. You can even share this directory with your colleagues and you can work together. Then you decided that you want to close this project and publish this project, then you can actually publish this project as is, and then it becomes kind of closed. It got a DOI, so that it basically can reach as is. But you can still have actually your working area, and you can still work on your working area, and you can still have a copy where you continue your research. In that, you can even have different versions of your outcomes afterwards as well.
Okay, and this staging area could be, I think it's limited on the public central instance, but on my own Oasis instance, the staging area could be as large as I want it to be.
Exactly. That's basically the idea. That's why we have this Oasis, so then you can really make your data management locally as you want with the permissions what you would like to have. It's also that is also Shajir showed that you first have to authenticate yourself to log in, and indeed there is a possibility that you can just use the already existing NOMAD central authentication service from your Oasis, but you can also just replace it and have your local key clock instance or connect to your local LDAP solutions and then make your local AEI applied on your Oasis yourself.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much. And yeah, if I may, another question, yeah, to Heiko Weber. So also thank you very much for the nice presentation. And you introduced the Nexus vocabulary, which has a particular scope. So yeah, as you told us, it's about neuron, X-ray, and so on. So it's not, of course, not spreads over the whole, yeah, natural science world, and also, yeah, so it has some scope. How do you have plans to provide this mapping to other FAIRmat projects, for example, that deal with completely other experimental setups? Or do you plan to extend the Nexus vocabulary?
Obviously, yes. I mean, it is. We have already enlarged this focus. This is where it comes from, actually, from this sort of beam facilities, and we have extended it quite a bit, and it continues to expand. And in FAIRmat, we have now our area E launched, which is use cases. So there are scientists from different disciplines, like solar cells and so on and so forth, and they will contribute their needs also to the FAIRmat consortium, and we expect that we will then have to define number of new quantities and new base classes and so on and so forth for Nexus. And we have actually we are participating also in the Nexus board. So we are very optimistic that we can extend this quite some while.
Okay, and are there also activities provide mappings, ontology mappings to existing vocabularies? Is this also a topic in this expert rounds?
Before answering this question, I just want to extend the previous answer, because indeed this example what we brought up today, this is nothing to do with neutron facilities or large-scale physics facilities. This is already showing the power, what you can do with a completely different kind of experiment types as well. And this is, as Heiko pointed out, this is in progress. Now, connecting the ontology into other ontologies, that's also an important thing. And I think we have to work together, not just FAIRmat, but all the other consortia. And indeed, what we do have on the radar right now in FAIRmat is to connect in this experimental ontology to all the theory what we already have within FAIRmat. So I think this is what is currently in scope, and certainly the next step will be to go even wider.
Okay, thank you very much for your answers.
Thank you. I see Jens has his hands up.
Yes, thank you from my side as well for very nice and comprehensive talks. So the ontology question, Simon already asked. And I do have another question, which might be slightly provocative. I apologize, I don't. But when I was watching the Camels presentation, I kept asking myself, what does Camels do that LabVIEW can't do? And because we do a lot of work with LabVIEW, controlling instruments with LabVIEW, bringing data in and out of LabVIEW in various formats. We typically use JSON, so HDF5 would be new to us, but I'm sure we could implement that as well. And could you maybe just tell me what's different?
Sure.
Better.
Sure. Thank you for this question. Well, the most obvious fact is that that Camels is open source. It costs nothing. While for LabVIEW you might have to spend some money. In a sense, LabVIEW is a specialized programming language. It's graphical, that's true, and it has very sophisticated building blocks and a huge library for communication with devices. But still, you have to do a little bit more than just configuration of your measurement protocol and data flow. And in particular, you have to take care on the data collection. And so what is stored and in which format? You have the freedom in LabVIEW to configure this, but also you have to think about that. That's something Camels provides by itself. It uses this Blue Sky framework for Python and collects the data while the program is running and comprises all data into this structured file. I think this is maybe the main difference, that it makes the configuration of a measurement protocol even easier while keeping producing fair-ready data on the fly.
Thank you. And maybe another question, since you mentioned, I mean, one of the attractions of LabVIEW is that there's so many instruments already implemented in there. And a lot of instruments also come already with LabVIEW drivers that the manufacturers make. What does it take to implement a new instrument in Camels then?
Yeah. So also Python comes with a lot of instruments, or maybe if you look for a specific instrument, you will probably also find Python code for the communication with the instrument. Of course, we are still working on camels, and we are also working on a camels device library, which we will extend. And well, the goal or the dream is that we will find a community which then develops even more device drivers specific for camels. But the core components for the communication with the devices, they are already available. You just have to add a few lines of Python code in order to make this ready for camels.
Mhm. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. I see Hampus, you've got your hands up.
Yeah, thank you guys. I think there's someone who's written quite a few Qt GUIs and Python code. This seems like it's gonna, make life a lot easier. So I think Jens already brought up one of the questions which I was asking about, which was this driver. But maybe like an add-on there. So do you plan to have this as a add-on that you can just add on, or would it really need to be compiled into the base code and then when you install it, or could you just add instruments, additional instruments on the fly while you have something installed already?
So the plan is that you can just add it on the fly. So right now we're also just using loading the devices that we're actually using. The others are there at the moment, so we're not yet downloading it from somewhere, but we're also planning to provide a repository so that you actually just download those files for the devices that you actually want to use, not all the others.
Okay, nice. And then a second question. So something that we found a lot of useful when we do these GUIs is to have somewhere. Is there some way to like say that you have a motor or you have something that you can jog it, like without starting like a complete scan, that you have some manual controls of your motors? Is this something that you have, or your SMU or whatever it is something you have in mind, or?
Yeah, so in general, this is definitely something that we want. For example, like the PID you just saw, you don't have to start this necessarily in a measurement setup where you want to measure. You could, for example, come the evening before, just open a little GUI and click, okay, set it to, I don't know, 5 Kelvin, then go home. And then on the next morning, you come back and then you start your actual measurement sequence with 1,000 different cameras and whatever. But this PID doesn't necessarily have to do anything with the measurement. And the same thing could be done with motors. You could have 5 motors open, controlling different axes and different cameras. You could click them individually without having a measurement running. And then you could say, okay, now I want the measurement to start. And I want these and these motors to be also used in the measurement. So this is definitely planned. This is already implemented for the PID. Exactly. I hope this answers the question.
Yeah, perfectly. Thank you, guys.
And maybe also regarding kind of device drivers and having this. So we are planning on also maybe hooking up with device libraries that are already written in Python. If we look at PyMeasure or SweepMe or different libraries like this, they already have tens, if not hundreds, of devices already written into this. So if we could just wrap this would make our life much easier. And anybody that writes for PyMeasure, we can just git pull it, and then we would also have this. So this is definitely the scope that we have for our measurement software.
Thank you for the question. Any further questions? In the chat, I do see a few comments, but my eyes are not.
Yeah, thank you for this nice presentation. Could you please post a link to the server in the chat? And that was indeed already done. So you can find the URL to the NOMAD server in the chat.
And actually, as Shajir pointed out, if you go there, you can log in if you have your NOMAD account. If not, then you can register very easily. And then you can immediately use these services. That means that you can take these examples. The examples coming with data files as well, Jupyter notebook, so you can really perform the experimental stuff.
Let me read here. There's a new message in the chat. Hi, and thanks for the well-produced and interesting presentations. Could you elaborate a little on how NOMAD, camels, etc. handle or aid the researcher in version controlling the raw data and metadata? To clarify, is something like Git built into NOMAD, and what is your thinking on this? Feel free to air opinions and commentary. Sorry for no camera at home nursing a sports injury. Okay, that's all fine.
Yeah. So let's concentrate on the data itself, and specifically now the data in NOMAD. One possibility currently that you've got your data, what we have already discussed, and you archive. That means that you close this project and this data set, and you start working on it. You can just simply rename it and work. It's not like Git. It's really just like before Git, you made a new subdirectory and you started to work in this subdirectory. It's really behaving, and there are lots of mistakes what you can do. But currently what we are working on, it's exactly to add this capability of versioning. Versioning not only just the data, but what we also provide the possibility of coming up with schema, which is not yet standardized. You can define your schema on the fly, also inside NOMAD as well. And indeed, that's what we'd like to support, that you can have multiple different versions of these schemas. So then it becomes an important question. If you have your schema and your data, which is connected together, so you've got the explanation of your data, you may want to come up with a new version of this schema. So you always have to also maintain not just the different version of the data, but also the different version of the metadata and how they are, the metadata schema and how they are connected. So this is actually on the table right now. We don't have solutions for this, but we have already started to think about it and put something together. But it's coming in the future. Actually, certain bits are already available, like the versions of the different changing schema.
So, Pushpaka Samar, please. Sorry for mispronouncing.
Yeah, it's okay. I know it's a difficult name. So anyway, so thanks for the panel, and then I really enjoyed the talk. But I have some question. If I understood correctly, do we need to connect to the internet via this instrument or whatever we are using, or is it possible to use these packages locally, or how does it work? And then the other question would be the data, who does this data belong to, and then the protection, and then could you kind of explain a bit about it?
Okay, so regarding cameras, well, that's a standalone program. You can download it and install it on your measurement computer, and then it runs without internet connection. That's no problem.
Okay.
That's for cameras. And for NOMAD, maybe?
Yes, NOMAD has a central server. Whenever you want to publish your data, you can upload it there. But if you are working on your project with your files and you want to work locally, then you can have a local installation. That's what we call NOMAD Oasis. This is something which you can install, even cut from the internet. You do need some connections to download it, but as soon as you downloaded it, you can run it actually locally, even if you are separated from the internet. And in your institute, you can use it for local data management. It is providing a service. So you need networking actually to connect to this central server inside your institute. But if it's provided, then you can already work from all of your clients, and then it's organizing and managing your data centrally on your servers. Currently, we are the NOMAD Oasis installation. If you just download it today, then it will run on a single computer. What we are also working on is to enable it actually on a cluster, so that you can already have multiple cores put together, multiple computers put together, so that your whole institute can actually work with the data also on that server if you want.
Okay, thanks. Just a follow-up question. Just in the case of this interfacing of these instruments, probably sometimes, you know, the ports we are using may be different and so on. Is it possible to modify these codes locally, or just how would it work? Because my point is that probably the interfaces and things, maybe, for example, we may have the Keithley multimeter and everything, but the interface may be different. So in that case, is there any way to, you know, make a compatibility thing, or just how does it work?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So in general, you can simply go into the device drivers that we've written in Python, and you could, for each individual Keathley, if you say for some reason our Keathley device does not behave the same way that you implemented this, it would be as simple as just writing probably one line of Python code and changing it from read question mark to, I don't know, measure question mark or something, if this is what your device does. So in general, this would be as straightforward as editing any Python file you would do when you would write it yourself. Exactly. So you can just change it on the fly, but if you want to change something, and this is what I showed when I showed kind of this Python code that was spit out by the measurement sequence, if you want to add something there, change something there, this is very simple. So all you have to do is just like open this Python file and then add a line of code. For example, you wanted to set some parameter that we did not consider or something for this device because it's a huge device with millions of settings. Then you can just add this one line of code and then just run it the same way in Camels, and it just keeps your modification and still spits out the structured data and everything. So these are the two options I would see for changing something.
Okay, nice. Then does it apply to the, for example, data manipulation as well? If we need a particular type of graph, is it possible to get it? Let's say just you know, instead of IV, you know, if I want to calculate electrical conductivity or something like that, it kind of, you know, just is it possible to do that like that?
Yes, so actually every value that you can measure, you can also plot against any other value that you're measuring.
Okay, okay. Yes, thank you very much. I already created an account. I'm looking forward to see how it works, and thanks again.
Thank you. Perfect and welcome. Thank you. Rubel, I see your hands up as well.
Hi. So first of all, thank you for organizing such a good seminar. Yeah. So actually, it's my the question is from my curiosity about the future. Still, the experimentalist needs to send data or put data in the NOMAD software. So, do you have plan for future? So, where FAIRmat will work with the software from the technology partner or integrated with the machine from the experiment?
Yes, to answer the question, indeed. So if you have a small lab where you have your devices here and there, Camels is the one which allows you to organize this and collect. If you have a bigger facility, then you may have other solutions. In both cases, you collect your data somewhere. And this is actually what NOMAD also offers, that if you make a local installation, NOMAD Oasis installation, then you can mount directories. So if you have a server, a storage server where all your experiments are basically dropping their files, then you can mount it to NOMAD, so you don't have to copy it over, but actually the data as it's collected already known by NOMAD. That's basically also the idea, and that's also the way we have already set up in certain laboratories.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. There are some other questions, and maybe someone with a good eye can.
Andreas Königke, I read, if NOMAD Oasis is distributed to several local servers, is it using Kubernetes, or how are the different sub-services orchestrated?
Indeed, Kubernetes is the solution, but we are already using Kubernetes, I have to admit, in our central installation. What we are working on right now to extend these capabilities also to support these kind of Norse features, where on the fly, you can just launch newer and newer containers to work with the data. So that's what's actually in progress right now.
Perfect, thank you.
Great.
Great. Thank you for the question. Now, I see no hands raised, but we wait. Sometimes it takes a while. Thank you for all those questions. Thanks to all contributors here. Thank you so much. Great job. And yeah, that's it for today. So thank you very much.